a firefly to a flame.
And I'm like a gambling addict to this game. Well, I guess I just am that. Hey, how's it going guys? My name's Abyss, and in today's video I'm going over the new limited 5-star character, Firefly. As usual, I'm late to these, and I'm sure that you've either already pulled her, or you're planning to pull her and you've tried and you haven't gotten her just yet. Kudos to you for skipping if you can. Like, a cool mech that's part of the meta and does crazy damage, and is free to play friendly, that's a hard one to skip for me. And she's not just part of the meta, she's dominating it. Just like she's dominating our I'm not reading that, that is so cringe. As usual, I'll be going over all the typical shit like her value to her account, as well as her best relics, light cones, team comps, and any substitutes if you're missing any supports. Let's start with value to your account. For the early game, this might be a little bit weird to say since I think a lot of people think she needs 360 break effect to be the best, and well, she does in the end game, but for the early game, most of your damage is break. And one of the relic sets that you have early access to and you get it from almost all sources like chests and everything like that is the thief set. She really does lower that need for different types of DPS. She can add fire weakness, she has an innate weakness break efficiency increase, she does AoE damage, she gets her ult in 2 turns guaranteed, and she only scales on break stats and attack, which are 2 very easy access things and typically easier to come by compared to something like crit. And although she takes away her own HP when she's outside of her ult, when she's inside of her ult, she heals herself, and when she's at lower HP she takes less damage, so it's a little less stress when it comes to healing. For the mid game or free to play players, I would say she still has pretty decent value. Overall, she's a very free to play friendly character. The only semi-expensive part of her is maybe like getting a Ruan Mei, because if you don't have her already and trying to get both of them in the same like space of time, definitely not free to play friendly in that sense. But don't worry, even in the team comp section I've got an area for you guys if you don't manage to get Ruan Mei. If you do, then that's great, and if you don't, you can still use Firefly. If she's your favorite character as well, you're obviously going to want to use her, and she's perfectly usable without Ruan Mei. And lastly, for my endgame players, my meta slaves, you lot know that break is the meta right now, and she's the queen of break DPS. I don't think I need to say much more, do I? Big break damage. And just for all of you as a whole, do try and grab a Ruan Mei, it is worth it, trust me, just for your account in general, and then you can watch my Ruan Mei guide and learn. Time for traces. To be honest, she's kind of one of those characters that you should be maxing all the traces out apart from the basic attack. You better not. Don't look at mine. Okay, do as I say, not as I do, you know? And you might be thinking, Abyss, you're being hypocritical. Yes, I am. But it's because I have your best interests at heart. For tradition's sake, let's say. I'll go over the trace priority anyway. Firstly, you want to level up her ult, that's probably the top priority. Then you can focus on the skill and the talent, they're about equal in value. And then leave that basic attack. Otherwise, I'll log into your account and make you play on regular speed. Alright, let's actually talk about her kit now. Firefly's basic attack and her skill both have 2 forms, one for inside of the ult and one for outside of the ult. The ult state is called the complete combustion state. Starting off with her basic attack, outside of her combustion state, it does a bit of fire damage. In her combustion state, it does a bit more fire damage, and it also heals a bit. Next up is her skill. This is what you'll be spamming, regardless of whether you're in or out of the combustion state. Outside of the combustion state, it regenerates 60 energy and consumes 40% of her HP, dealing single target fire damage, and it also advances her forward by 25%. Inside of her combustion state, it restores 25% of her HP, applies fire weakness to the designated enemy that you select, and deals fire damage in a blast attack. Her ultimate's up next. When activated, puts her in the combustion state. I think I've said combustion state so much I'm losing my mind. It doesn't even sound real anymore. Anyways, when you use it, she gets another turn instantly, and she gains 30 to 60 speed depending on the trace level that you have. So at level 10, it will be 60 speed. Attacks in this state have increased weakness break efficiency, meaning you shave off more of the enemy's toughness bar. You also do more break damage in this state, and the countdown has 70 speed, so you can get about 3 to 4 turns depending on what your speed is. Her talent just lowers the damage she receives if she is at lower health, so the lower her HP, the lower damage she takes. Also, if you're below 50% energy when you enter battle, it will immediately regenerate up to 50%. The last part before I talk about the nodes is her technique, and it's pretty cool. You get to fly into the sky. You don't really get to experience the flying as such, but you get to like kind of move around, and then you come crashing down to attack enemies, and it deals fire damage to all enemies and applies fire weakness to every enemy as well, and that lasts for 2 turns. And just finishing off her kit, I'm just going to talk about the big node thingies. So the A2 node allows you to do toughness bar damage to all enemies hit during your ult state, even if they don't have fire weakness. The A4 node lets her do 35 or 50% super break damage if your break effect is at 200 or 360 break effect in her ult state. And lastly, her A6, this converts some of her attack to break effect. So for every 10 attack above 1800 attack that you have, it becomes 0.8% break effect. So if you're at around 2000 attack, you're going to get 16 break effect from that. Now you might be thinking, is there secret ways to play? How do I play her, Abyss? Well, it's not really that difficult. There's not much to her playstyle. You just have to manage your skill points efficiently, trying to make sure you're always using your skill with her, and you're pretty much sorted. The only kind of extra thing to keep in mind that I would say is that when you're playing with Harmony Trailblazer, you might want to just save your ult. So just time it so your Harmony Trailblazer ults first, then you go in with the Firefly ult, and now you have the super break active, as well as just the increase in break effect from the ultimate as well. Here's the part we all love, the Relics. Now, obviously, first place goes to Iron Cavalry. We all know it was made for her, so no surprises there. The 4-piece is best for her, not only giving her break effect, but defense shred too, and the requirement is only 250 break effect, which sounds daunting at first, but when we go over the stats and the checkpoints and all that, I'll show you how easy it is to get past there. And if you're not interested in hearing me go about all that, you can just take my word for it. I'm trustworthy, right? Next up, for those of you that listened to my wise words in the past, you should have a decent amount of quantum relics lying around. The 4-piece is really good for her just because of the defense shred, since one of her best in slot teams doesn't really provide defense shred, barring like an E1 Ruan May. But if you don't have 4-piece quantum, I don't recommend you farm it specifically for Firefly. You might as well just farm the new set since that's better. You can also use the 4-piece thief set. It offers up to 32% break effect. The bonus effect of getting extra energy upon weakness break is worthless because 9 times out of 10, she's breaking enemies while she's in her ult state. And she can't gain energy when she's in that state. And even if you do break outside of her ult state, the amount of energy you need to get her ult is 240, so it's going to be pretty rough to get there anyway. And since that's worthless, you can just use a 2-piece mix of any of the break effect sets. You know, Iron Cavalry, Thief, Watchmaker, and whatever you have lying around. At the end of the day, it's all temporary until you do get that 4-piece cavalry set. On to planner ornaments. Now, this might be a shocker for you guys, but the new planner ornament set is actually best in slot for her as well. And you guys know it's got some long fuck-ass name that I'm not going to remember for a while. I don't even know which word to pick. I'll just pick the first word, the Forge set. There we go. We're going with that. I hereby declare to every Honkai Star Rail player, it is called the Forge set. Now, they weren't shy about hiding it. This set is kind of crazy. 6% speed, and whenever you hit an enemy with fire weakness, you get 40% break effect increase for a turn. Now, one turn does sound small, but with Firefly, you're going to be hitting an enemy with fire weakness almost always. So that's going to be permanently up. The next best option is the Talia set. If you're already at the 150 speed checkpoint to get the 4 turns in her ult, this set is only a 4% break effect decrease from the previous one. It's completely fine to use in the long run if you can't be bothered to farm the new set. There's no other real options in terms of planner ornaments. You could argue that Space Sealing Station is an okay one until you get like Talia or whatever the new set is called. But yeah, that is a very temporary option until you do get some form of break effect set. Alright, so let's just talk about each piece. So for your body, you want attack percent. For your boots, you're going to want speed. For the orb, attack percent again. And lastly, the rope, you want break effect. She does not benefit off of crit, so do not go for that. She does not benefit from fire damage bonus, so do not go for that. On to stat checkpoints. So you want a decent amount of HP, around 2.5k or above is good. For your speed, you want to aim for 150. It can be 140 plus if you're using Ruan May, but aim for 150 anyway. For your break effect, it's a little bit of a range, 200 to 250 or higher if you can outside of battle. For now, just take my word for it. After the team comp section, I'll have a little bit of a math area if you're curious about it. Since I ended up doing the math for this when I got a notif to see Firefly's kit, it was like on HoYoLab, so I managed to see it a little bit early. And lastly, for your attack, around 2 to 2.3k seems to be the average. This isn't really something you need to aim for, especially if you have a signature light cone, your attack will probably be lower. But break effect is more important than attack, so if you're choosing between them, it's better to usually go for break effect. Now on to light cones. Do I need to put this in my guide still? Do I have to keep doing these for all the guides? You know the signature's the best one, come on now, we both know it. However, I will say you don't really need it. I have a little priority section at the end as well, so if you are curious about what to go for and in what order, I'll go through it there. Her best in slot for your free-to-play players will be on the Fall of an Aeon. This is the one you have from the Herta store. If you do not have this yet, please go and get it. Don't waste those little Herta ticket things to go and pull for the standard banner, please. Another good option is Indelible Promise. This is pretty good for the break effect to help you reach certain break checkpoints. The crit rate is useless though. It also is a gacha icon, so it's a little bit more difficult to make sure you get as many copies. If for whatever reason you can't use any of those ones, then it's better to just go for an option that gives a lot of attack percent. So Clara's one, Woof Walk Time or whatever that one's called. Most of these will probably have some effects that aren't that useful, but they'll still offer attack percent. Remember, attack is good for Firefly as it converts to break, but damage percent is bad. It doesn't affect break or super break damage. Crit is also bad for the same reason. Onto the team comps. I'm sure you already know, but Harmony MC is probably the most important teammate for Firefly. Without the Trailblazer, you are losing out on a lot of damage through Super Break. As long as you have those two together, the rest of the team doesn't matter too much. Obviously, Ruan is going to be the best in slot, and then Gallagher's also the best sustained for the team in terms of dealing extra break damage. But Firefly and Trailblazer are still a good combo without those two. For replacing Gallagher, any sustain works. After all, his benefit isn't that crazy that you really need him, and you can just bring any other comfortable sustain that you have so you stay alive. As for Ruan, her options for substitutes are a little bit more limited. The main two recommendations I have are Pella and Asta. Asta buffs speed and attack, and as we know, attack goes to break effect, so she buffs break effect. Asta's attack buff relies on how many stacks that she has of her talent, and you can get an extra stack of her talent if you attack fire weak enemies, and Firefly implants fire weakness. So you basically have this uptime pretty much always. As for Pella, she applies Death Shred, which means more super break and regular break damage dealt to enemies. I don't know about anyone else. If Jiao Cho is also some sort of defense shred, because I know he is Nihility, then he can work as a substitute as well. But I wouldn't really wait on him just to be able to do that, and I wouldn't take this gamble because we don't know anything about his kit. Some of you may have noticed that in the background gameplay, I've tested a few teams with Firefly, and I've swapped out Ruan mostly. So I tried Pella and Asta and compared it to Ruan, and these are the results that I seem to have found. Ruan, first half of MOC, 3 to 4 cycles versus Argenti, and then the second half cleared it in 1 cycle. Asta and Pella both had the same amount of cycles, so 6 cycles against Argenti and 4 cycles for the other half. So you can see the kind of damage difference and cycle difference in that. However, I will say that Pella feels a little less comfortable than Asta to use. Asta can contribute more with the weakness breaking since she does fire damage, and the faster you are breaking, the more downtime enemies have, as well as the more damage you do with super break, or the more chance you get to hit super break attacks, I guess is a better way to word it. Okay, math time. Skip ahead to the next chapter if you aren't interested in hearing my smooth, charming, charismatic voice speaking about math. It's fine, I'll forgive you. Okay, now that the big dumb imbeciles are gone, we can do the cool math stuff. I'm kidding, by the way. I know some people just don't really like the spreadsheet or math side of stuff when it comes to these games, and that's totally fine. I will say that this is pretty much just simple addition and a couple of percentages here and there, so it's nothing that impressive though. So I'm just going over how she gets how much break effect that she ends up with. We'll start from 0. All of her traces, the little sub-trace things, get us to 37.3, and break effect rope, now we're at 102.1.
Jingle jingle, pay attention, pay attention.
Then we'll add at least one break effect 2-piece, that brings us to 118.1, and if we say we have an average Firefly build, which is around 2k attack, that gives us another 16 break, pushing us to 134.1 break effect.
Jingle jingle jingle.
Up to this point, we've included kind of very generic stuff that everyone should have access to. Now we'll start narrowing it down a little bit more. Pair her up with Harmony MC, we get 30 from that ult, and if you have the A4 Trailblazer Eidolon on a 150 break build, you're getting about 15% of that, which is 22.5% break effect. This puts us at 186.6 break.
Dingle dangle dingle dangle.
Now let's say we add the Forge set. We don't need to care about the substats too much. That gives us another 40. That puts us at 226.6. And then let's add some substats, say 11 break effect per piece. That's kind of a mediocre roll, so plus 55 to that, and we're at 281.6. We're going to add a Watchmaker 4-piece to one of your supports, which is what you'll be doing anyway, and that's another plus 30. This gets us to 311 break effect. So all of that was kind of like minimum roll stuff, so nothing crazy for an endgame build. As you get better relics, you build your Trailblazer more, you get a Ruan, you're going to be easily surpassing 360 break effect. It does sound intimidating to have that much break effect needed, but don't worry, you'll manage it. Not to mention you also get more stats if you have more attack. The reason I included such a kind of math heavy or kind of long explanation part is 1, because I wasted my time like a dumbass doing it when I first saw the kit, and 2, just to kind of ease your minds a little bit, because again, 360 break effect sounds like a huge amount, and it's enough to the point where it might convince you to go for the signature light cone and waste money or pulls, and you don't really need to. But good job, you made it to the end of the math lesson, and I'm proud of you for that. Okay, now that the scary part is over, let's talk about the Eidolons. E0 is fine. She's plenty strong at E0 S0. Her E1 is pretty strong, giving 15% defense ignore, and her skills in her ult form no longer use skill points. This has pretty good value for an Eidolon, especially at E1, this is great. Now for E2, this is probably the one you've heard the most about. Weakness break or killing a target, you gain an extra turn with Sam. This does have a 1-turn cooldown, so your typical 4 turns for an endgame build turns into 6 turns in her ult state. Now you might want to strap in for this one. Her E4 gives her 50% effect res increase. Yippee! Holy. This is unbelievably useful, as you can do so many things with that, like, effect resing stuff. Don't go for this, please. Please don't go for this. I swear, if I see any of you with not an E6 but you have E4, I'm hunting you down. And her last Eidolon, the E6, gives her 20% fire res pen and 50% more weakness break efficiency with her enhanced attacks. Whilst this is good, I really think this is pretty underwhelming for a final Eidolon. Definitely not worth it, but if you're even considering it, you're probably hella rich, so you know, do what you want. If you want to send some money my way for like an E1, you know, hit me up. Ignore that. Anyway, E1 or S1, this is what I do in my guides. I always go over this. But this is how your pulls should go. I've even gone as far as to make you guys a flowchart. Aren't I sweet? So, do you have Ruan Mei? No? Go get her. Yes? Good. Do you have money / pulls? No? Yes? Damn. Get E1, go for E2, or you can opt for E1 Ruan Mei and her light cone. Going for Firefly Eidolons obviously buffs her damage, but if you're going for Ruan Mei and her light cone, then that's going to buff the rest of your teams and any other teams that you use her with. And as we do, let's close off the video. There's not much else to really say about her. She's an incredible unit that's surprisingly free to play friendly. The only downside is that she's useless against enemies that have toughness and vulnerability, so they kind of hide the toughness bar, and she's fairly mediocre for, you know, multiple waves of weak mobs, because you can't really attack 5, you can only attack 3, and when you are breaking them, you're probably already killing them, so you're not even going to do super break damage. Other than that though, you'll probably have a blast using her. Everything about her kit feels really fun, and there's minimal downtime on her ult state, and just having that huge amount of weakness break capability, I don't know, it's always nice to just break through everything instantly. Well, that does it for today's video. Be sure to leave a like, subscribe, and comment if you're going for Firefly, or if you're saving for someone else. Me personally, I couldn't pass up on a badass mech, and getting a cute girl as a bonus, that's pretty sweet. Also, thank you guys so much for the support recently, I really appreciate it, and it makes my day knowing that I've helped you guys out, whether it's with a guide, or questions you've had, or just the fact that you've enjoyed one of my videos. I don't know, it makes me happy. Just a last reminder, feel free to join the Discord, we're very welcoming, and it's just a chill place to hang out with the community. But yeah, thanks so much for watching, and I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace.